wait. No.
Listen. Wait.
I hate you for that.
Let me fix it.
Hello and welcome back to Let Me Fix It, the podcast that says quack, 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 let me, quack, 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 quack. I'm Francesca Ramsey. I'm an actress, a producer, a writer, and graphic designer.
And I'm DeLon Grant. I'm an actor, a singer, photographer, writer, and educator in class. Today, we have such an awesome guest on the pod. She is one of our dearest. She's been a mainstay in the New York City cultural sector for over 14 years, honing her skills in art service at the Public Theater, the New York Foundation for the Arts, Fractured Atlas, and Give Me Dance. She is currently the CEO of By FORALL, a nonprofit organization that helps public institutions matter to more people. She is one of the smartest people I know, and I mean that wholeheartedly. Courtney Harge, welcome to Let Me Fix It.
Yay! Thank you so much for having me, and also just super excited to be in your company. Also, both of you, two of the smartest people I know as well. I'm so excited to get to talk to you about all the things.
We are so excited. In class, full transparency, Courtney is a dear friend of ours. Courtney, DeLon, and I met freshman year in the acting program at University of Michigan. We were, at least originally, the only Black people in the class out of our 22 students. And we started as the only, and then we brought others into the fold.
Absolutely.
And I mentioned this only because having you on the pod is really like a full circle moment for us twice over. We met when we were young, Black, and naive. And we are still Black, and we look very young, even though we're not. We're a lot more seasoned and successful. So let's do a little praise dance for that. Yeah.
Yes.
Look at us. We are podcast hosts and a CEO amongst us, writers, actors, and professors. Courtney, did you see this in our future? Because I didn't know. I knew we would be somewhere, but it feels a little different now that we're here.
You know, something I say frequently is like, if the only good things that could have happened to me were things I saw, I would not have so much in my life, right?
Ooh.
Like, it's like
Prophetic.
if I had
In
to
with
pick,
the hot takes already, Courtney. Damn.
Oh,
Profound.
my
but
God.
it's real. Like, if I had to say, oh, this is what your life is going to look like, and I could only pick the good things that I imagined, I would have missed so much.
Wow.
So while I always saw greatness, you know, I always saw something dope. Like, well, I mean, there was something about the time where there was just a possibility. Like, we were going to make something. We just didn't know what that something was. And so, did I see it? Absolutely not. Did I believe it? Absolutely.
Oh, I mean, these are things that you wish you could go back and say to your younger self. But again, to your point, Courtney, you don't know until you know, right?
I don't know.
The other thing Fran is talking about in terms of the full circle moment is that, Courtney, you were mentioned in our very first podcast of Let Me Fix It about going to acting school, as Fran said. But Courtney, you are attached to that episode for a very specific, crazy-ass reason. I'm going to say one thing, and you're going to know what I'm talking about. We already know. Jerry Schweibert, class. Jerry Schweibert was our movement professor at the University of Michigan. And, we make a lot of predictions on this podcast, but this is one of the eeriest we've ever made. Courtney, will you do the
most fatal prediction we've ever made.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Excuse me. I have COVID, I have COVID, so I'm coughing through this.
Oh, no.
Courtney, will you do the honors of telling the class this story? Because it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. It's amazing. You know, as somebody who had a sense of the absurd, I actually think Jerry would appreciate it. In that, like, you all were launching this podcast, and DeLon was telling a group of us about the episode that ultimately came out. But while you were recording it, you were talking about Jerry, and I believe on it, you were like, well, you know, he died. And I was like, I don't think he did. I don't believe he had. And we were like, no. And so we were trying to look it up. And so a group of us like kind of spent the weekend trying to figure out whether or not he had passed away. And while we were in that, I believe the next day he actually did pass away.
Like, what?
And it was the series of absurdities, because it was a series of conversations with our college friends, his folks being like, I don't know, and nobody could be sure. Did he pass away?
We were also prepared to edit the episode.
We were going to edit it.
Yes.
So that we didn't say that he died, and then sure enough, he did. I mean,
he died.
Shout out
Courtney,
to Jerry.
That day.
Courtney, you texted me a screenshot of Facebook that said, basically R.I.P. Jerry, and I was like, Fran?
Right. That was what's wild. And yes, because I saw on Facebook, like we were talking about it, people were looking, and then there was the announcement on Facebook that he had passed away.
The timing was...
while we were debating whether or not he had passed away.
So weird.
Crazy.
Well,
right.
you know,
is
Courtney...
that like Schrodinger's cat? Like, where you don't know until you open the box if he was in that limbo state? I don't know.
Yeah, I guess so. Blame the pod. Well, all right, let's dig into some of your badass excellence as the CEO of By For All. Like Delon mentioned in your intro, it's a nonprofit organization aimed at helping public institutions matter more to more people. Talk to us about why Of By For All is so significant, and also remind us why nonprofit organizations like yours are so important.
Oh, that's such a great question. So Of By For All came out of, was founded by Nina Simon, based out of the Santa Cruz Museum of Art and History in Santa Cruz, California. She wrote really great books, The Art of Relevance and The Participatory Museum. And she had developed a kind of practice around bringing communities into museums. And she managed to found it and had her very first board meeting and membership group, and everybody went back home at the end, literally February 28th, 2020. And then some stuff happened. Some things went down, where it was really an organization that was founded to bring more people physically into your spaces, be participatory and be relevant, was now facing a world that could not do that by weeks. And so really just some change happened. The world changed a few different times over 2020. And then she realized she needed to step away to do some other really great things. And so I stepped in March of 2021. And what this second era of By For All has really been is what does it actually mean for an organization to be a responsible steward of its community, right? These institutions, and I unironically say I love institutions. I actually believe in the power of institutions. Much like a bad boyfriend, I keep believing they'll be better. I'm like, there's so much evidence to the contrary, but damn it, I believe in them. Because good institutions, I think, should run like communities. They should be spaces where people can come in, access what they need, be supported, be in conversation. Because the way institutions hold so much, they literally just have physical space. They have, frankly, ideological space. They have our history. They have objects. They have the means to support our tangible and intangible narratives. And so institutions should be communities. And what Of By For All is about is how do we create institutions and individuals that can be in healthy relationship with each other.
Wow, that is so significant, Courtney. That is so significant. I know this is going to be an inspiring conversation.
I feel like my eyes are already misty because I'm just so impressed and inspired. Give us a talking point with a funny analogy and tie it up in a bow. You are a CEO.
Okay, but it's
right? Theater school.
Okay, but it's the language is breaking. I love words. I get accused. Courtney get accused all the time. You've listened to the pod about SAT. I love a word.
Words are great,
but words are so powerful because they break my brain open a little bit, right? The idea of being a responsible steward is imperative in terms of if you're offering your community, if you're a community center, you're offering a specific thing. Why is that not? Well, you have an immense responsibility therein, right?
But also the idea that institutions can be agents of change and goodness. I feel like our natural association is institution. Someone's been institutionalized, or this institution is
drinking the Kool-Aid, right?
Yeah,
you're part of the.
Yeah, it's like the power structure in such a way that feels really overbearing and treating people unfairly, but kind of reframing how we look at institutions, I think is really powerful.
Well, and Courtney, I think like the nonprofit of it all is really interesting too, because I think, you know, we fall into these in the private sector or in the nonprofit sector, public sector rather, we fall into like, oh, I need to be a cog in the wheel, right? I just need to like show up and do the thing that I need to do versus like what I think you're talking about is being a change agent, right? Is asking more of the institution. So to Fran's second question, like, what do you think is like the importance of nonprofit organizations right now, because it seems like FORALL has a lot of connection to those.
Yeah, and I'm gonna take that question. I'm gonna back up a little bit. You know me, I love words. I love saying the things, but like I like to start at like the practical thing. Like nonprofits were and are a tax structure that helps like basically rich people stay richer in a variety of ways, right? Like at its basic level. It's also nonprofits were also founded with the idea of being in some ways a social safety net. Like the government provides X services and now we are going to give you a tax break to provide additional services for the greater good. Like that's what a nonprofit is functionally, right? Some people attach a moral imperative to nonprofits where they're like, oh, they are like inherently noble. And in a capitalist society, that's in many ways impossible because they still need money to survive. But the idea that nonprofits are in fact there to do what government doesn't do or can't do, or maybe cannot do in a localized or specified way, like I think as a structure, they can be really, really helpful. The problem is, I feel like I'm not quite informed enough to fully be a socialist or an anti-capitalist, but I wear their clothes a lot in the sense of like.
Listen, I got a few garments in my closet too,
right? Like I will wear, but the idea that like I think one of the ways that capitalism like fails us in so many ways is it limits our options, or it makes us think we don't have options, and so nonprofits limited themselves to the point where they start operating like for-profits, or at least try to compete in the for-profit space.
Yes.
And like no amount of theater will ever beat an iPhone. And I love theater. I've dedicated my life to making it, but like I can't build it. I can't make theater in that way. I can't operate at that scale just because of the amount of money it takes, right? I can't charge you $1,700 a ticket to see my art as much as I would like to, right? But that's what it costs to get an iPhone, right? And people pay that because having a smartphone, having access to technology has become so critical in capitalism that people have to choose. Yeah. What can I experience? What do I need? Like it becomes a necessity. And so I think nonprofits are struggling because they have to compete in spaces that they actually can't compete in. Like, one of the things I think COVID really did to undermine like the theater going experience. And again, I come from the theater space, but also have worked with nonprofits of a variety of disciplines. But like it actually made people have to choose between their lungs or an artistic experience.
Wow. Oh God, when you distill it like that, damn.
But it's like that's unfair. I love theater, and I'm like, but is it worth breathing?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. Like, that's great, but I love breathing unassisted, and so what can I do? And in both being glib, but it's also a real thing. That was real math people had to do about what they go participate in. And COVID's not fully over. There's still stuff. So it's still part of the calculus, right? There we go. Yeah. So sorry.
That's all good.
So it's still part of the calculus. And so how do you take care of institutions who have proven that they don't take care of you, who have been hostile and harmful, knowing that they do still hold a greater good? And so we have to both hold them accountable and recognize that they are still there to serve the needs that government is either ill-equipped or ill-suited to handle.
Man, that's such good insight, and I don't think I was aware of any of that, because obviously I work on the other side of nonprofits when I go do regional theater and stuff. Just to drill down that a little bit more granularly in terms of what you deal with and some nonprofits deal with, but by FORALL, your mission statement has a lot to do with like equity and inclusion, right? And
Yes.
we're all aware that the DEI, the diversity, equity, and inclusion groundswell that happened in the wake of George Floyd and Black Lives Matter has been, dare I say, dealing with a lot of pushback, particularly from.
It's become a slur.
Yeah.
It's become a slur.
Yeah.
No, they literally made it a slur.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have
They literally oh, sorry, go ahead. I will let you finish the question before I answer.
No, please. No, but like, how have you dealt with that at by FORALL? Have you dealt with it with the institutions you help? Have you dealt with it as an institution?
Absolutely. It's been really wild to see. Like, I for example, like, librarians, an excellent group of people. If there is, a group of people en masse, librarians, like, so many of them came to me when we were working. We had a bunch of libraries in our program, and they were like, we did not expect to be a battleground. We are ill prepared for this. Like,
there were just protesters showing up and
right.
saying indoctrinating children, like, and all kinds of
drag
crazy
queen
stuff.
Story hours, people are protesting pride displays at libraries where like they're organizing, going and actually taking all the pride books out so people can't have access to them.
Or even stuff about like Black history in libraries. I mean, it's nuts.
Yeah, and librarians are like, what is happening? Like, we were just here and we read to the kids and I'm hoping, I'm in no way diminishing what librarians do. It's super important, but they were just like, libraries used to be fairly like neutral territory. Mm-hmm. I say this as the daughter of a firefighter, like firefighters were in many ways considered neutral, right? Mm-hmm. Like public service, but like, and so like there was this same energy where it's like, no, it's librarians. What do you have against librarians? Right. And now, but then they find out that like, their budgets were being cut. Like they all of a sudden, like people are going to like school board meetings and saying, this is the type of filth that I can't, blah, blah, blah. And like, so people were just ill-equipped. There are some states, #Texas, where it's illegal to say diversity, equity, inclusion in any type of official document.
Illegal?
Yeah, Florida's pushing for it too.
It's not so illegal. Illegal might not be the right word. It may not be punishable by law, but it is banned or restricted, particularly if you're going to access any type of public funds.
Where the fuck are we, friends? Where the fuck are we?
I mean, we in Parable of the Sower, if you ask me.
Right?
Listen, Octavia Butler, sit down, girl.
Right? Well, girl, it's
she tried to tell us.
She did. It's like, man, could you have not been right this one time? That would have been really great for all of us. But no, you were correct. And so I've seen it in people's kind of reluctance to engage in our programming. Like,
wow.
If you look at our site, like, I come from a very strong anti-racist work. I don't say racist on our site, not because it's not there, but engaging in the language, like that becomes, you start fighting about the definitions, you start fighting about the word and not the behavior.
Wow.
And really also expanding what we talk about to frankly talk about like workplace, because we all go to work. And if we don't, more power to you, but we all go to work, right? And work is where so many of our negativity starts. Like so many of our isms, repression, our power plays, like when we go to a job, any job, we tend to both create community and replicate power structures that we've engaged in everywhere. And like sometimes that's the fault of the work, sometimes it's the fault of our own mess, sometimes it's just like we just create these environments
and it
that
has
determine
double
how
meaning
we
when
work.
your boss goes, we're like a family. It's like,
We're like,
oh, you are.
Oh God.
You want to talk about
family is trash too.
That's the worst
right?
thing in the theater. That is like it's
The
such
kiss
a
of
weird.
death.
It is because it imposes. Sorry to interrupt you guys, but it imposes like this forced. It's almost like forced relation.
Nobody ever calls you family to give you something.
Yes.
Ooh.
Well,
Nobody ever calls you family to say, here's this money that I want you to inherit. That's not what they call
take
family
advantage
to
of
do.
you. Exactly. Yeah. It's this idea that because we're family, which, you know, the layers of this is you shouldn't take mistreatment from your family members, but the implication is we are family, so I could treat you however kind of way, and you will have to deal with it because I love you. That means you can work longer hours. That means I don't have to give you vacation.
And it's also obligatory. You have an obligation to.
You have an obligation. No. No. And I mean, yes, you are right. No, I make it a point to I never call my team my family. And we have a really healthy working relationship. We've done a lot to shift to make sure that we're working, because one of the things that I can't stand is the hypocrisy of like being service or social justice or community oriented and a tyrant. I know a lot of orgs. I've worked in some. I have worked with others where like their outside story is give and charity or whatever, and their inside story is tyranny and garbage. And it's like, you aren't even pretending to pay me enough to make that work.
I feel like you're talking about Ellen DeGeneres.
I've never worked for her, but I've heard.
But Courtney, you're right.
I've worked for others.
I've heard that from a lot of people in the nonprofit space. And, you know, I've never worked for a nonprofit, but I don't think that it's lost on anyone that funding is that one of those big issues for nonprofit organizations. They put it in the name. We ain't got no profits over here, so we could use some of yours. Courtney, you've spent such a large part of your career working for nonprofit organizations. Other than funding, you know, and you touched on this a little bit about the outside story versus the inside story. What are some other issues that these organizations face, and how do you think we should go about fixing them?
Very good question. I mean, I know you said besides funding, but funding is a problem.
That's your everyday funding, right?
That's everyday. Yeah. Funding is a challenge because, again, you know, nonprofits. So 501c3s, there are two types of 501c3. One is what I call the giant pile of money, which is the one that says we are a private foundation. That's where we can put our money into the thing, right? The other type of 501c3 is a public charity. Those are the recipients of those money, right? And in order for folks who have the giant pile of money to keep the majority of it, they have to give a small percentage of it to the public charities, right? That's why if you see grant applications, it says, you know, 501c3 has to apply. Because in essence, it's like, in order to protect the giant pile of money, we'll give you some of the scrapings off the top so we can talk about doing well. And then that goes into the public charities, right? And so nonprofits are still a business structure. They still have a business model, and so they still have to make money somehow. And so what are you selling that is that people are buying, right? And I say, you know, I started my career after acting as a makeup artist, and I think that actually made, particularly retail makeup artist, and that made that prepared me for fundraising, because you're negotiating on an intangible. A red lipstick is a red lipstick, but you are negotiating on the ideal behind a red lipstick, right?
Oh, wow.
And I think there is no harder negotiation than negotiating with a woman over her own face. And that's what selling makeup is. Right? You're talking to her about, these are all the things I think your face can do, and I want you to pay me for the privilege of letting it do that. And and that's, in many ways, fundraising is selling an intangible. Like, I'm offering you a service. I'm offering you this play. I'm offering you this library. I'm offering you this work. And I want you, donor, to contribute to it, even though you may not be the beneficiary. The beneficiary
you might
is
not
the
physically
audience.
see it. Yeah.
You might not physically see it, right? And I believe that's actually an honest and integrity-centered way to negotiate, when you're telling people, hey, you're actually investing in an idea. You're investing in the greater good. That's what you're giving it. You're going to get a tax write-off. That's where you're at. But you are, in fact, buying the greater good. I think nonprofits failed is really strong, but I'm going to lean into it. When they started selling real things, when they started selling, here is your building, here is your plaque, here is your name on the thing, here is your ability to make decisions for us, here is your ability to determine who works with us or for us, here is all the stuff. And the second they stop selling the intangible thing, now, one, we're competing with the people who actually manufacture the tangible thing.
Yes.
And two, we stopped being able to sell the thing that we sell, which is the ideal, which is the art, which is the creation of theater as a viable practice, is a necessary need for our society.
I would also imagine that when you start giving the tangible thing, like the name on the plaque or the name on the, the banner or the logo or whatever, that suddenly you have more hands in the pot that are like, well, actually, I want it to be like this. When the intangible is like, well, I don't really know anything about theater, so I'm going to trust y'all, but I know how my company's logo should look on this plaque.
Right.
So can you make it a little bit larger and, I paid this much and whatever else.
And so I think they're struggling. So while it's not a funding struggle, I do think it is actually an ideological or spiritual struggle, because now they're trying to compete with the prestige of an iPhone. And I keep picking on iPhones as somebody who owns one just because, but they're trying to compete with the prestige of an iPhone when Apple is still making iPhones. Like that's always still going to be cooler and shinier with more support in that way. And you now have to spend your time manufacturing the things for people to buy. Like, to go back to COVID, like the number of building projects that got canceled because somebody had invested millions in a brand new theater space in this building, in that expansion or whatever. And all of a sudden, when that building couldn't go anymore, people were really lost. And they're like, oh crap, we have to make theater again.
That's really interesting too, because I think, I worked for a nonprofit when I lived in Boston the first time, and I worked in the ticketing program. So like it's a nonprofit that helps arts orgs in the Boston area, but their tangible is we sell half price tickets to the greater Boston area. So I was the manager of that program, and it not only does it kind of distort, I think, the ideal you're talking about, or the attention to the ideal, but it also puts a lot of undue pressure on your workforce, meaning like having been in that position, there's a lot of responsibility that was on me to sell more tickets or to come up with different programs that we can figure out so that when we go back to our donors, when we go back to the Mass Arts
we
Council
can say, here, we did it.
Give us $50,000 more. Here are our numbers. Here's our 5-year strategic plan to tell you how we're going to get to X. But like,
it's like a weird way to make a nonprofit a profit.
Exactly.
Because like now it's about
Courtney.
It's now a product. It's the iPhone versus the theater type of thing. It's it's such a conundrum.
Yeah. Right. And then we start manufacturing the theater that made money. And again, I'm picking on theater because it's what I know, not because it's specific to that industry. But we start manufacturing the theater that made money to generate more money. And we start, as opposed to making new art or being interesting or is something, we just keep doing things that make money, and money isn't real. It is a thing we made up that we all agree on. It has real impact, but it is a thing that we made. And so we're manufacturing stuff to generate this other fake thing.
I love the way your brain works.
Yeah, you're so good at and I love analogies. So you're scratching that part of my brain for sure.
But in many ways it's like making cotton candy to buy real food. And it's like you can't, it's going to keep melting, it's going to keep going. Yeah. And you're like, but if I sell enough of the fake food, I'll eventually get to the real food. But if you keep investing that back into cotton candy, all of a sudden you don't have a thing anymore. You don't have a real thing. You have a thing that yes, you can hold, but the second it touches water, it disintegrates. It's like, it's not a permanent, it's not a tangible, actual physical thing that you can make. Where like, I believe art is a real thing.
I wanna pull another part of that, the way you think out, because Courtney, you recently did a keynote talk by FORALL entitled "Imagining the Beautiful Revolutionary Future," which I'm gonna give you all the props for this title, right?
A writer. She's a writer.
Okay, she's a writer. So you begin the thesis for this talk with this profound quote from writer activist, and you'll have to help me with her name. Is it Adrienne Mary or Adrienne Marie Brown. It's Marie. Yes. It's just spelled different. So this activist, her name is Adrienne Marie Brown, and I'd like to share the quote, and then I want you to respond to the question, because I want you to walk through us what you mean by beautiful revolutionary future and how we begin to imagine it. But I'll start reading this quote very slowly because I'm dyslexic and it's complex. I believe that all organization is science fiction, that we are shaping the future we long for and have not yet experienced. I believe that we are in an imagination battle, and almost everything about how we orient toward our bodies is shaped by fearful imaginations. Our radical imagination is a tool for decolonization, for claiming our right to shape our lived reality. This is why they're trying to ban books. This is why they ban the books, because of this thought process. So talk to us a little bit about your talk, Beautiful Imaginary Future, and how do we imagine it?
Amazing. Well, one, I always have to shout out Adrienne Bree Brown. I'm sure there's a part of her that's tired of me quoting her everywhere. But she is just so brilliant, and she's out there just doing some really amazing work, particularly around not just about our mindsets, but about like how we tangibly like bridge the gap between what we think and what we do. Which is something I think I'm always striving to do, where it's like, we want to be a person and we are a person, and our day work is to get closer, to minimize the distance between who we are and who we want to be. But she really talks about like this idea of the thing we know is the thing we know, right? We are currently almost 250 years into this American experiment. At some point we can be like, hey, it's not working in the way that you all thought it was going to work. So what if we imagine something different? Like, if you really put yourself in the minds of the founding fathers minus the atrocities, like just for a second, these are folks who did not have, who
wash
maybe,
their ass.
Right, absolutely. Word, right?
Sorry.
No, did not.
They really did it. They really didn't.
These are people who had like maybe the equivalent of an 11th grade education if they had a whole bunch of money to get to what he wanted to do, right? Who were living in a grand hypocrisy of writing all men are created equal while asking some person to go get all of their things for them and committing atrocities left and right? So imagine so you were already more resourced than those people who came up with an idea without working electricity 250 years ago.
Yes.
Right? And so imagine if we just got 12 11th graders in a room and said, hey, could you fix democracy with, I don't know, indoor plumbing and roads? Like, you already have so much more. So what if we just did that again? Right? Because they couldn't have imagined any of these things.
It's so true.
Because they weren't tasked with imagining it. They were just like, there's war happening. We have to organize ourselves somehow, some way. So we're going to do this. And they had some things that came before, but they were like, we're going to try it. And I don't know if they imagined, if they even had the capacity to imagine 250 years from now.
They couldn't.
And so, they clearly didn't. And so what Adrienne is really calling to us is like, the thing we know is not working. So let's be brave enough to imagine something else. Let's think, like, anytime you think about what is possible, not limited by what is actually happening, you can build something new. Because I would go back into my other like cheesy thing is like, humans build things. That is, I think, in fact, our greatest gift. We walked out of whatever caves and we were given fire and rock and we made cities. Like that is impressive. Even if we're terrible in doing it. Like, if
we're a disease, but
right, even if we're, but like, we make things, we make environments, we make structure, we organize ourselves, we are immensely social. All we have to do is point our imagination in the right way, or in a more supported, values-driven way, not just a capitalist way. My other quote that I like to pair with Adrienne's quote is from Tony Cade Bambara, which is, it is the role of the artist to make the revolution irresistible.
Wow.
Give me a second. Let that seep in. Say that one more time.
I also just feel like we need this framework, because things do feel so terrible. And especially like when we talk about the AI of it all, it's like, no, we need artists to create these ideas and come up with these new solutions, not computers. We need to, use the power of our imaginations. I love this science fiction framing for that reason. That just letting your mind go wild rather than being limited by our current reality.
Right. And what I love about the Tony Cade Bambara quote is, I open that talk and I talk about what my future is. And my future is a life of frivolity. I don't want to work, babes. I don't.
I'm right next to you.
Right. Like, I'm not laboring for labor's sake. I'm laboring because I want to get to the point where the work is at least finished, or at least I've done my part. Like, I want to retire. I want to enjoy, I joke about a life of frivolity. And I say toil is not my ministry. It's not. I work very hard not to toil for the sake of toil.
These quotes. Wait, also tell us what in your imaginary future and the talk you say something specific about what in the life of frivolity what you see, and that made me cackle as well.
Oh yes, no, I want to wake up on a beach. I want to eat prime rib for 3 meals a day with a dessert of like ice cream, and then go witness art at my leisure. It's my prime rib and ice cream future. I want all of that.
I love that.
And I talk about like, it gets a chuckle whenever I share it, but I also am like, well, what were the things that would have to be true for that to happen? It's like, one, if I wanted to eat prime rib 3 meals a day, one, we'd have to remove like the common knowledge around healthy eating, fat phobia, body shame, right? Two, like, so that would be one. Two, we'd have to provide like healthcare that would allow my body to accept that as a diet, right? We'd have to remove the stigma from like what health means versus like just that all bodies deserve care. Right? Like, and that world sounds irresistible to me, not just because I want prime rib and ice cream, but I would love a world where all bodies are good bodies.
Yes,
right?
Yeah.
And so frequently when people are talking about the future or talking about like the work that needs to happen, they focus so much on the work that's like, yeah, but the result is we all get to be free. We all get to live in a world that is both beautiful and revolutionary, not because we have to burn the things down, although some shit needs to burn, but because it is a place we actually all want to be. It is, in fact, and that future really is irresistible to me. And so I ask people, what is irresistible to you? Okay, work toward that.
That is, I really, really appreciate that framing, especially because it does feel really overwhelming when you think about all the things in the world that need to change, but just drilling down and like the thing that you really want can give you a pathway to get there. Class, if you want to watch Courtney's talk, we will put a link to it in the show notes. One of the main topics that we wanted to chat with you about, Courtney, is work. The way that you have described the way that we practice work as being grounded in dehumanization and exploitation, and that one of the reasons everyone is burned out is that the systems we work with want it to be that way. So can you just talk to us a little bit more about that idea, but more importantly, as the show title says, how do we fix it? Work should not be dehumanizing. Right. Is there a way for us to get there? How do you imagine that looking?
Amazing. Yes, I have so many ideas. So I will, to keep us under 3 hours, right? I will talk. I will condense it for sure. But and I want to shout out a friend and collaborator, somebody who I've worked with when I was working at Fractured Atlas and stepped into his own work. And it's Tim Sinova of Work Shouldn't Suck, which is a really great organization that partners with orgs to like build value-centered HR processes. But where it comes from for me really is, I'm that person. It's like slavery is always the problem, right? And like,
yeah,
we really founded a work ideal. Like when we really started talking about work as a process, like if you even talking about like pre-industrial age, when people had to in fact start having opinions about work, I think is very much about, I coincides with the creation of chattel slavery. Because they had to explain to people who they stole what you're supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
And so the literature about what work means really started coming around in this space. And I don't understand how you look at people who you are forcing to work for you and call them lazy. Like that disconnect is wild, and you have to manufacture it in some ways because you're seeing them work. And you're calling it lazy, and there's whatever, just some math, some complex arithmetic, some taffy pulling has to go to like make this make sense. And I think we as a society started at that very poison pill, and this started just building on top of it. It's like, okay, well, we are going to offer freedom, but now they have to earn it. And so like the 400 years of labor before, that doesn't count. Now it's because you're free is new. And so now you have to earn it again. And it's like, but we had back pay. We're not doing that. Okay.
Yeah.
And so we were like, okay, well, we'll put factories on top of this, right? So we have farming and we put factories on top of that. But the factories, like, we have to, again, believe that people don't want to work, so we're going to lock them in there until the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire, and then we set everybody on fire, and we're like, okay, maybe we should open the doors, right? Then we get to,
right, and at this time we're also being like, yeah, your 5-year-old can work. He got hands.
He got hands, right?
Literally,
right?
Like caps on hours, how many hours that you work? Like you work all the time,
right?
And so there's a series of direct lines that go from like forming that structure of work to our current structure of work, and it's like, do you really need your free time? Like, but let me judge what your PTO is for.
Oh gosh, yes.
You should be accessible at all times. You should answer emails on the weekend and after
Slack. You didn't get my Slack though?
Yeah. That we still bring back that royal we. Well, like, are we prepared to do this thing?
Stupid. So dumb, but you're so right.
Right? Like, and it's like, so I feel like the foundation of this thing with all the layers is that thing. That thing that says that there's a difference between a human person and a worker. And there is not. Workers don't exist. There are only humans, right? And humans, again, I go back to the thing I said earlier, humans actually want to work.
Yes.
Nobody paid us to build societies or tribes or pyramids, other slaves, but there's so many ways in which humans like self-organized before money and capitalism, where humans were like, I see the world and I want to impact it. I want to make something of it. So the idea that any particular group is lazy is a myth, but the idea that humans are inherently lazy is a myth. Humans do stuff. If anybody has ever just tried to sit still on a Saturday and can't do it, shows that you are, in fact.
Girl, I've been stuck in this house for 3 damn days. I done watched all the TV.
He made a TikTok.
And friends been on my ass about this social media for months. I'm sitting there, I'm like, let me do a TikTok. Just listen, crazy.
Right. Like, so we make things. And and humans have made beautiful things. We've made powerful things. We've made harmful things, but still great and kind of awesome in their power and scope.
Yeah.
And so why would I build a workplace, or why do we continuously build working processes that assume that the humans who work for you don't want to do it, don't have the capacity to do it, and spend all of our time controlling them and limiting them in the ways that they in fact can be most helpful and powerful?
I mean, it's been so evident with like the push to return back to the office. People worked from home and they were still able to be very productive and, dare I say, more productive, because to your point, Courtney, they were able to like manage their life and their work in a balanced way that, like, some people are like, you know what, I work better at midnight and I can spend my day with my kids, and then at night when they go to bed, I can get all the work done. And then as soon as COVID was quote unquote over, suddenly it's, you have to get back to the workplace. We need you in the office. We are a team. And it's like, no, we can be productive at home. But to your point, Courtney, it's not that we want you to be productive. We want to control what you're doing. We want to control the experience.
And that's a thread I want to pull about both of the things you said. It's a power dynamic, right? The thing you talked about, Courtney, in terms of like being a worker versus a human, and Fran, like the agency around saying, oh, I actually can have some work-life balance. It doesn't work for everybody, but for some people, a majority of people, they're like, you know what, let me sit my ass home and do the work here at home, because I only work 4 hours. Obviously, when I'm in the office anyway, I get more shit done anyway, right? But it's like the idea that you have the power to make that decision for yourself, or make the decisions for yourself, is not okay with the organization that you work for. And I think the lazy thing, you really hit on the head for me, Courtney. The lazy thing is crazy, but the idea that like I'm sitting back owning you, or I own the business and you're working for me and I'm saying you're not working hard enough, inherently adds some level of shame and level of guilt that is a power thing. It's a power dynamic,
Yeah, it's all about trying to control people at the risk of sounding like all tinfoil hat about it. But there is this practice. One of my favorite stats from the pandemic, which sounds like a funny thing to laugh at, but I promise it's funny, is that there was a period of time when people were debating returning to work, and the general consensus, like the large number, was like 50-50. Some people want to come, some people don't, right? But I think it was NBC, and I will find the exact link. They disaggregated the data by race, and 97% of Black people did not want to go back to the office. And so when you did everybody, it was 50-50, but when you specified who you were talking to, only 3% of Black people wanted to go to the office. And I thought, if that doesn't tell a story, if that isn't like, doesn't say what
I know
people
that
are getting.
I can zero in on exactly who them niggas was.
Listen, well, because the 97% was like, I'm not trying to go deal with Sharon and Kelly and them. I am not trying to go back to that mess.
No,
but I was like, it was just wild to see like the gap, and it's like who does being in office serve?
Yes, it's so true.
And what parts of them does it serve? Because I don't know if it's serving the work. It's serving the other stuff.
Power ego, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Courtney, it's such an inspiring conversation. One of the things we love to do here on Let Me Fix It, especially with the guests, because Fran's a cheetah, is we love to have a frivolous game. I personally want to continue to pick on your brain. So our game is going to be a little bit more of like a hot takes thing. Fran and I will offer up some things of the culture. I know you do it because Class, she is active on Twitter. We're going to get your Twitter handle in a second. She's active on Twitter, and I know you're going to be all about these hot takes. So Fran and I will name something in the cultural sphere that's somewhat frivolous, and we want to get your top of mind hot take. Cool?
Yes.
So this is Hot Takes with Courtney Harge.
All right. First up, what is your hot take on Meghan Markle?
Girl. So my hot take.
Okay. I mean, I feel like that says it all, right?
It does.
Right.
No, I it's really interesting to watch like factual institutional racism come at somebody who wasn't 100% sure that they were Black. Like,
I mean, they hate us that much. You a kid, Olay, and they're like,
they're like, no, and like, so I think of like, 2 or 3 years ago, it might not have been 2, where like Prince William said something about his family not having a racist bone in their body, and I'm like, you all are literally the empire. You are factually the institutional racism.
No, you have
put the
a little
racist
Indian
bones in.
You are the racist bones. I don't, or at the very least, somebody in your family sits on them.
In
like,
the cathedral over there.
Right. Like you are. And I was like, oh, people don't know
you
what words
wore a
mean
Nazi
anymore.
uniform to a costume party, sir.
But it's like
what are you talking about?
You are literally the colonizer. You are factually like not. This isn't. It's like not opinion. It's not like you factually have colonies. Like that's how this works. And so for you to be like, we aren't racist. Like, oh, you all don't understand what racism is.
Right.
Like that's where we are. We're like, people don't know what the word means. They just think it's ill feelings toward brown people, which is part of it. But also, like, I don't know, owning them is part of that. And or it's like how many people have your grandmother's face on their money? Like that is in fact a racist thing.
Institutionalizing racism.
You are institutional racism, and it was like, oh, you don't get it. And so, like, my Meghan Markle, and I really have no shade to Meghan Markle. You're talking to somebody who also loves Suits. I think she's great. And I also think that there were promises made by society to her about what it meant to be Black that she did not have to deal with until she had to deal with them. And I don't know if I am strong enough, and I've been Black for a very long time, and I don't know if I'm strong enough to fight the royal family. Like, I don't know.
No.
I want to believe I have it in me.
You saw what they did to Diana?
Right.
She was the Lily White.
And she was in it, right? She was of it.
Exactly.
Like, you have an actual...
They literally ate their own.
Right. It's like you have an actual dungeon that you can put me in. Like, you have... Like, it's not a metaphoric dungeon. It's like a real one that you actually put people in. And so, like, big ups to Meghan Markle for, like, being in love and like fighting all of that, because I'd have got real arrested. Like you come at me crazy, and they've been like, where'd Courtney go? Oh, she is under the Tower of London, baby, because she popped off in a way that was.
She said, you better call her Marie Antoinette. Marie Antoinette, that's the French, but you get the point.
I fully feel like I would have wilded out with the way they were coming at her in a way that just would have gotten me.
And she did it in the most classy of ways.
She
really did.
Up next, hot take.
Good for her. Yes.
Hot take, reclaiming or reappropriating the term alphabet mafia when speaking about the 2S LGBTQIA plus community. Just a bit of context here, class. So the homophobes started referring to members of the 2S LGBTQIA community as the alphabet mafia. And then the alphabet mafia was like, okay, we're going to start calling ourselves the alphabet mafia because it's cute. 2S stands for, that's two spirit, just so those who don't know. So some people take issue with the idea of like equating the community, as I'll call it, with an illegal entity, them being the mafia. But I think it's cute. What is your hot take on that, Court?
I have.
I mean, all queer people at the table here, right?
Right. Yes. Yes. Yeah. And I think it is, one, reclaim the words that work for you, whoever you are, right? Two, people who want to disrespect you can call you by your full government name and still be disrespectful, right? They can I've heard people say my own name with such distaste that like, I'm actually not as concerned with what people who are committed to misunderstanding me or mistreating me call me. You can call me ma'am and be disrespectful as fuck.
Right.
So I want people to reclaim the language that is helpful. And like, again, somebody who doesn't want to honor you, somebody who is saying is using the language to try to diminish you, isn't going to listen to you when you say, well, that's ours now.
Right.
And so I get it. And like, okay, look, the mafia is an illegal entity. It's fine. So is our occupation of this nation.
Hello.
So like, it's a matter of like, is there a consequence? Is there going to be like some type of official mandate? This is the appropriate language. Cause there's no, I don't want to say it's not important because that's not how I mean it. It is important what you call yourself and what people who respect you call you, but people who want to disrespect you will use whatever language is available to them.
Right.
And until there's some type of like official ratification by the queer community of like, this is what we're doing in our queer planet and our queer state, like I don't use the language that serves you, that lets you be called by your name in whatever name you want.
No, I think that's totally fair. All right, next hot take. Streamers like Netflix, Amazon Prime, and the like adding commercials to our paid accounts.
I'm so mad at that. I'm so mad at it.
I'm so mad.
Salty.
So, like, wasn't that the point of it being a streamer?
Right. Give me cable and TiVo then. Like, let me go like old school so I can just skip through the commercials or whatever, but do not take my whatever $99 a month and act like you are doing me a favor.
You're doing me a favor, literally.
I almost, just because I can't afford it, but I almost threw something at my television a few days ago when Amazon was like, you can watch this commercial-free presentation after these commercials. I was like, it's not commercial-free. Like, I'm shouting. I look like a crazy person shouting at the television.
Absolutely.
But I'm like, that language doesn't even meet, it's not commercial-free. Like, you can say uninterrupted after this commercial presentation, but you can't say this commercial-free presentation after these commercials, because that's not commercial-free. And I argued with, a pop-up on my television for much longer than I should have, but it made me so mad.
Hilarious. I've been sitting there watching it for days, and I've literally been like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Kidding me. Every time.
Okay, next and last hot take, and this is somewhat weighted because I know your opinion, because I'm sure it's the same as mine. White folks in cornrows and white folks in dreads. Give me your hot take.
It's like, what's the succinct way to say this? It's like, my problem is like almost all of those people choose those hairstyles temporarily. They visit
it's a phase.
I don't know. It's a phase. They visit to like shock and awe somebody, even if that shock and awe is their own system. And then the second that all of the things that whiteness has promised them manifest, they will walk away from that. Right? Like
I had a black boyfriend once. Oh, did you know?
Right. And it's like, in our 40 years, I know so many people who I saw when they were 20-year-olds doing that, who are now, you know, sitting in their Uggs with their Stanley mugs, being you know, with leggings and a long tunic, talking about, oh, I remember when, right? And with their blonde highlights. And it's like, oh no, you, like, the second you were able to get the things that, again, whiteness promised you, frankly, like, that phase disappeared. And like,
and blackness is not a phase. Those hairstyles are not a phase.
Exactly.
Right?
It's a way to act out. It's a way to rebel, to your point about like the shock and awe. It's a way to embody this feeling of like, I'm different from the rest. But again, it's not permanent. And I think the thing that Delon and I talk about all the time is I would feel less bothered by it if we didn't face consequences for wearing our own natural hairstyles. So like when it's okay for us, personally, I'm not offended by it, but I'm like annoyed that like you get to wear it on a runway or you get to wear it in a photo shoot. When I show up to set, it's like, oh, I don't really know how we gonna take care of this.
Oh, girl.
Because our hair is our natural hair is a challenge, an adversity for other people to overcome versus a fashion statement for others.
I want to shout out somebody on that is Nakia Mathis. She is an actress. She's amazing, but she also just won a special Tony for Yaya's African Braiding Salon.
Yes, she did.
She created, like, she's really just worked really hard to advocate for better standard of service with particularly Black Broadway stars and in theater in general, not just Broadway, but and so won a special Tony for the work she did in developing the hair and looks for Yaya's African Braiding Salon, and like is working to really adjust that, like what happens on sets, because how can you offer a standard of professionalism when there's just a sect of the people you serve who just can't get proper hair care or makeup or whatever? Like,
that was one of the
dereliction of duty.
That was one of the gains that we made in the SAG strike was makeup and hair equity. And it's incredible that it's taken that long, and to hear that similarly Broadway has been having that reckoning as well. It's very disappointing, but you know, better late than never that we're here. But like we've been asking for this forever.
Right. It's like, it's 2024.
Courtney, we just want to say thank you so much for being on the pod and giving us this completely inspired and informed conversation. We hope that we can call you for future hot takes because we love chatting with you. You have so much incredible insight. She's a writer. Okay. She's an auteur. I mean, the quotes,
tastemaker.
The quotables just flow from you. And we are all heartened by your call for us to continue imagining a beautiful revolutionary future. Before we let you go, please tell the class how they can stay in touch with you and your work.
So grateful to be here. You can reach me on most social media platforms as arts_Courtney. I'm not as active on Twitter anymore because Twitter, but I'm still there. Instagram is where I live most of the time. You can also, I'm immensely Googleable. My name is pretty unique, so people can find me. But if you want to reach out at Of By For All, you can actually email info@ofbyforall.org. I monitor that space, so I'm happy to talk to people there. And yeah, I would love to continue this conversation. I would love to come back and get to talk to you all about more stuff. I actually want to add the one thing that my team says I say at almost everything is quit your jobs. Is that, and I say that because so many orgs will use your labor to make themselves look good. They will take your talent and your insight and they will use it as cover. It'll go out to their donors while they don't pay you your severance. So I strongly suggest pull a LeBron, take your talents to South Beach, find a place that will support you, because do not set yourself on fire for these institutions. As much as I love them, if they are not taking care of you, don't do it. And we don't need any more martyrs. You know, both Jesus and Martin Luther King already died for this cause, and that didn't fix it. So we don't need your body on top of it too. Take your talents to a place where you appreciate it.
Courtney, come on.
Now that is a mic drop if I ever heard one.
Okay.
Thank you.
I love you, friend. Thank you so much.
I love y'all too. Thank you so much for this time. This has been really glorious.
That was such a great conversation.
Gosh, man. I just again, one of the smartest people I know, you and her.
She's always been that smart.
Always.
Like freshman year, I was like, oh, are you the professor? Are you teaching?
Legitimately, but the way her brain works, but also the way she's able to take a nugget and then break it open and make you think, oh, I've never thought about it that way. Wow. And use 3 words. Talk about an SAT word. Courtney uses words and I'm like, I know what that word means, but I'm thinking about it, right?
Yeah, no, the analogies really got to me. I so appreciated her. So thank you, Delon, for making that suggestion. It was a really good one.
Yeah, no, I'm glad she could make it.
Well, now it's time for everyone's favorite segment, the Glow Up, where we give props to those who've turned themselves around without our help. But first, let's take a quick break. And we're back. Delon, are you okay with me going first?
Yeah, have at it.
Okay, my glow up this week goes to conspiracy theorists because after this Trump attempted assassination, the conspiracy theorists are, listen, I have my own theories. I don't think this shit, nothing about this seems legit. And I normally have massive side eye for the conspiracy theorists. But this just all seems a little bit too convenient, and it definitely feels like more people who are normally a little bit more level-headed and logical are looking at this and going, I don't know, this don't feel right. The photo is too perfect. How did his whole ear not get taken off? How did he get up on the roof? The Secret Service, y'all have one job. How the fuck did he get up there?
That's my thing. We pay hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars for these people. Thousands of millions? Yes. Mm-hmm. We pay a lot of money for these people to do vetting. And I mean, they're only people, right? So people make mistakes. But to do scans and for snipers to be up on high points. And they didn't see that one that was 100 yards away. It's kind of crazy.
Still in clear sight of the people in the audience. People have clear photos on the phone. And listen, I had the luxury of being in VIP for Beyonce and in the nosebleeds. And in the nosebleeds, you could see shit from my phone.
I'm so mad about you comparing this to the Beyonce concert.
I'm just saying, I have an iPhone 13 and the shits do not take clear as pictures as I've seen as that man on that fucking building.
Oh my God.
How is it that he was up there and everybody has him in 4 motherfucking K? But they didn't see him beforehand. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, here's the thing. Even the conspiracy theories aside, because we're going to run rampant, I think what's happened in our conversation is that about anything, about politics, is that everyone is second guessing everything. Mm-hmm. And that's the freedom of democracy. That's the freedom of being a human, freedom of thought. Because I think all of your points stand. I watched it and I was like, oh, what are you talking about? Then I was like, hold on a second. No. But I think my broader point is the idea that we're questioning any of it and not going, hey, that's a human that was almost killed is a bigger, well, not even that, 2 people were killed.
2 people were killed.
Right?
Yes,
the idea that we're not going there says something more about where we are in our society. And I think that is something we should lean into because we're fucked if we can't look at that and go, damn, some motherfuckers was killed. And
yeah, no, listen, I can acknowledge and I feel for the families of the people that were injured and were killed. I also have Donald Trump said himself, oh, I could stand in the middle of New York City and shoot somebody. And he has said vaguely threatening things about, whether it was January 6th and there are good people during the Charlottesville shit. I mean, he has said so many violently inflammatory things that it is, to your point, genuinely hard to believe that this was a random occurrence and that it wasn't orchestrated in his favor, because that photo is that's a historical photo, whether you like it or not.
And when he came up from the Secret Service piling on him, the way he was no, move. So he could get his fist up. He was insistent on that. If nothing, I mean, that says more about who he is as a small man, a small human.
But also, usually the Secret Service, they're not going to let you do shit.
That's what I'm
saying.
Your
life is in danger. They are taking you off that stage and putting you in an armored car in 2 seconds. And instead they were like, oh, yeah, sure. Let's let him get the photo off.
Pump.
Do the fist bump. It just seems weird.
I do think, to your point about I think Donald Trump has really loosened the ground on the foundation of under us in terms of political violence with January 6th, with Charlottesville, with not believing his intelligence community and choosing Vladimir Putin's opinion over, about hacking the 2016 election. He's the one that started a lot of this. Mm-hmm. And I mean, people have tried to kill presidents before JFK, Ronald Reagan was shot. So that's historical. That's not new. But what is new, I think, is the way we're reacting to it and the way it's becoming normalized. And I think we're in trouble. We're in trouble. Full stop. We're in fucking trouble.
I am somebody who likes logic and facts and figures. I'm just saying that your weird fucking uncle, who is usually the outlier at Thanksgiving, he sounded like he making some sense right now. Because he's been saying weird shit for years, and now you're like, I don't know.
Fred was like, bring that cup over here. I got a straw.
See what's over it. You making some sense. You making a little sense now.
How much sugar's in that Kool-Aid?
All right, Dylan, what's your glow up?
My glow up, I've been talking about it all episode, goes to COVID.
Oh.
Because class, if you didn't hear me coughing on the episode, I'm currently sitting here in quarantine. I don't even know if I'm supposed to be here for 5 days, 10 days, whatever. I'm going to test after 3 or 4. Well, today's 3rd, but I'm going to test after 5, I guess. Because COVID's back, and I didn't know there was a surge happening, but everyone I've been texting about it, they're like, oh, yeah, no, I just got back from LA, and all my friends have it. Oh, yeah, so-and-so has it. Oh, it's going around New York City. I'm like, really? I wish somebody would have told my ass I would have put a mask back on.
It's a summer surge. Something about, it's warm out, everybody's outside.
COVID loves the summer.
Well, I guess it does. I think that we, unfortunately, had the belief that COVID was going to go, have like peaks and valleys. And, usually it's like in the winter, colds are going around.
Right.
In the summer, they're not. Who gets a cold in the summer? COVID does whatever she wants to.
COVID said, whack, 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 whack.
She's like, I'm a multi-hyphenate bitch. Winter, spring, summer, fall. I do it all. All right, now, class, we want to hear from you. How fast can you say beautiful, revolutionary future? Beautiful. Yep, I can't do it. I only got one time in me. Let us know how many times you can get through it. Or maybe you would like to suggest a TV show, a celeb, or a brand that we should fix in a future episode. Hit us up on Instagram at FixItPod or email us lemmefixitpod@gmail.com.
And class, we are in the midst of wrapping up our very first season of Let Me Fix It. Thank you so much. We've still got a few more episodes, so, listen, we're taking a very short break, but we ain't leaving yet. Calm down. But we're going to take a very short break soon to do some planning and organizing for our next big season. But we just wanted to give you a heads up that we'll be coming to a close. We'll be coming back. In the interim, please look for these faces on social media because Fran's going to be editing and pushing me to do some TikTok, to do some Instagram stories.
We've gotten one TikTok out of our boy during his quarantine. So fingers crossed more are to come. And do not forget that we also have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/@FixItPod. I'm seeing all of your comments coming into the inbox. So thank you. And remember, there's not going to be any fancy editing in the YouTube clips. You're getting the raw and real Francesca and Delon every week.
Just slinging it out there. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to give us a rating on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, or your favorite podcast app. I'm Delon.
And I'm Francesca. And this was
Let Me Fix It!
Yay! That was great.